jacked up on Damien yet again.
Hey everybody, it is Sleepy Reader, aka Damien. Frog in my throat. I've got a righteous thirst for cold brew nitro coffee. So let me get that going. This seems like cheap theater, but I'm running out of time, and I decided to do this shtick again. But basically, I needed something to drink while I talk.
I'm all jacked up on Damien yet again.
This is my comic book countdown, and I had 10 comic books this week, and as usual, highly subjective ranking of them and a few thoughts about them while I talk to you. And I feel very subjective here. It's like, really, did I rank that at that number? But I did, and I think I'll stick with the numbers I chose in terms of my enjoyment, my reaction to these comics in the moment. So up at number 10, kind of a shock to me, is the final issue of a Primordial. Lots of great art here. Well, to back up, actually, there was a point when I first started reading this, like in the first issue, where I really didn't like the fact that a lot of these pages were just photographs collaged together. But in the course of reading all the other issues, which I kind of shotgunned, issues 2 through 5 this past week, because I had let it slip by, lots of aspects of the art really grew on me. I mean, even if he isn't drawing much and he's mostly photo collaging and just doing a little bit of Photoshop filters to make it look a little bit more like a drawing. There was just something fun about all the inventiveness and cool stuff he did. So I kind of got over my disappointment, my prejudice, my preference for the sense of the hand of the artist, as opposed to the digital trackpad of the artist. So coming into, I shotgunned all of those, and then I took a little break, and then the next day I read the 6th issue, and coming into it, I had kind of high expectations. I was thinking, this is kind of a cool story. And what happened in the end here, I don't know. I literally don't know what happened at the end. Some kind of reunion. But, no, I just needed something more. I mean, I can accept a certain amount of sci-fi, Arthur C. Clarke, childhoods and mysteriousness. But this one, I don't know. Did Jeff Lemire know exactly what happened? Or was he faking and fudging it and letting the artist just sort of get all cosmic to make it up for him? Anyway, I'd say, even though I'm ranking this lowest, because I enjoyed the journey, I still enjoyed this comic overall, except for that last issue. And I'd recommend people who are interested in it for the art to still get it. Maybe get it in floppies if they become cheap soon, which they may well. Because with all the double page splashes, you don't want the gutter loss of a paperback trade, I would say. Okay, in at number 9 was Silver Coin. I really enjoyed, I think, the last Silver Coin. I told myself I would just pick up issues of Silver Coin based on who the writer was. And I have no experience with Vita Ayala. I think that's a woman. I don't even know that. I think maybe she's done some writing for Marvel, but I haven't read her stuff. Or maybe I've read one other thing by her. I can't remember which. But this was such a predictable horror story with the crooked cop getting his comeuppance, with, as far as I could tell, no twist in it, The only thing that kind of intrigued me, this is a bit of a spoiler, and those of you who want to read this and haven't yet, wait till I stop showing the comic. But or I'll put it anyway. At the end, is the person at the end, like the police spokesman or police chief, is he also the gangster at the beginning? Who, like, is the police chief the gangster or the police commissioner? Is he the head of the mob that makes our hero? That was the only thing that I found interesting here. The other thing is I kept thinking while reading it, I think I posted on Twitter about it, is like, how in love with the color brown are modern comic book people? This, I believe, is colored by Michael Walsh himself. It doesn't really look bad at all, the way he uses brown, because it's not a heavy brown, but it's constantly all over this comic, and I'm not sure, like, why that color, particularly because I see so many browns in other comics. So anyway, both of those were okay comics. There were no bad comics this week. I mean, no comics where I thought, oh God, I wish I hadn't spent my time reading that. I was just a little annoyed at the end of Primordial, but I still enjoyed the journey. So here's an unusual one. It's called The Cult of Icarus. I picked it up off the rack at my second bookstore that carries more of the out there indies. This is a Scout comic. And I just liked the look of the art. And I think that's what sustained me to make me bring this one at number 8, put it over Primordial and the Silver Coin. But it, in memory, it doesn't stand out a lot, other than I had fun looking at. And I don't think this artist is fully baked yet. I mean, they're probably at the beginning of their career. Let's see, what's the artist's name? Carl Slaminsky. But I just like a lot of the stuff that Slaminsky does, and I enjoyed the coloring. He must have done his own coloring. So I enjoyed the varied and interesting coloring choices. And again, maybe a more experienced artist would make different choices, but it was fun. It's a world with a woman who has some kind of powers. Her parents were monster hunters, I think. And they were killed, and she spent her time in foster homes, and now she's trying to find out about her past, and she's getting involved with vampires. I don't know if I'll pick up future issues of this or not. I enjoyed it, but it didn't grab me like I have to get it. So it probably will depend on my mood. The other interesting thing, I don't know if you can, this is the weirdest cover material ever. It's somewhere between like rubber and pleather and something else that I can't quite identify. Maybe you could use it as a condom. I don't know. The advantage of it is there's no glare. And as much as I've been touching it, there's no sign of fingerprints. And it would be it's a very thick material, so it won't damage easily at all. Interesting, intriguing. I wish I knew what the name of that material was. I put in at number 7 another sort of small press one that I picked up off the rack at Books with Pictures. Yeah, that's what's called, Books with Pictures. This one's from Behemoth. It's called Quad. It's also not super original. It's a post-apocalyptic story, and there's these muties, I forget what, who you have to fight off when you're doing other stuff. But it was kind of cool that the hero is someone who's a repair woman. It's in the future. You have to keep all the technology going by repairing it. So she's on an adventure to repair this power station. I thought that was kind of cool. I really like the black and white art. It just had a vibe to it that gave me a lot of pleasure. Again, I don't, because it's just sort of a generic storyline. I think it just depends on my mood whether I pick up more. I'm pretty sure it's called Quad, but it's also called Tara and Elvis. So I don't know if there's going to be multiple quad storylines with different characters and how long it will last. It's a one-man show, Eduardo Schall. So I feel like he's a real promising writer-artist to keep an eye on. I'd say well, there was a weird thing where this porno star, Ron Jeremy, shows up, not as himself. He's like the guy who works who gives out assignments, I guess, at the repair place. And then the other thing is, I wished he'd been a little more inventive on how he drew his mutated monsters. I guess they're kind of like zombies or something. But it would have been nice if he thought of some other way to portray them. It's not horrible or anything. There's a close-up there. Okay, then in at number 6 was the Sword of Hyperborea. I kind of liked the first issue more than I liked the idea of it, than I really understood what was going on. This one skips way ahead in time. So the first one was like in deep prehistory, and now we're in World War I. So that's a big jump. And we have this intriguing heroine who, I'm going to spoil this also, so you might want to skip ahead. I'm not spoiling the whole plot, but the reveal of what she is, because it's what makes and breaks this book to me. Doesn't break it, makes the book more interesting. She turns out to be part werewolf, part vampire, but apparently fighting on the side of good, as far as I can tell. And there's a secret society working in the German society of World War I. And I don't know if this is, despite having read a lot of BPRD, I don't know how much this links up with BPRD and whatever the history of the world of Hellboy and BPRD is. Whether World War I had a different cause and different outcome than it did in our world or not. So anyway, this was a fun read. I'm looking forward to the next issue. I actually, for some reason, liked the art by Lawrence Campbell better in issue 1 than in this issue, but I liked the story better in this issue. And in at number 5, a lot of these are very close in terms of my enjoyment. This cover was really cool of Hulk what number is it? Hulk number 4 or Hulk number 771, the legacy number. The story continues. We're in this alternate world. It's ruled over basically by Thunderbolt Ross. There is no Hulk. For some reason, they are after Bruce Banner, and the Hulk from our world decides, who is the spaceship Hulk, controlled by Bruce Banner's ego or id on the inside, decides to fight off these gamma-powered robots. It was okay. It was okay. It's fun, and I enjoyed the art. I was hoping somehow for something a little more, but I don't know. In general, I'm all with this series, and I don't know. We'll see what happens next. I don't want to spoil too much or anything, but that was fun. It was a fun read, but not as fun as I had hoped. My Bad was a fun read. I put this at number 4, but maybe not quite as clever as I'd hoped from previous issues, but I can go with it. My Bad has a certain random quality to its satire of superheroes. So we get a long section about, even though we're already on issue 4, just a random moment with the chandelier where, for some reason, in his regular guise, he can't order a sandwich at this shop, but he goes in as a chandelier, and they gave him a fancy bologna sandwich. But overall, this is just a fun read. I'm just kind of going with it and seeing where it takes us. And it takes us in weird places. Like this supervillain becomes best friends with the superhero that he accidentally nearly completely destroyed. And they keep coming back to the fact that even his genitals were destroyed. And they introduced this just random character called Acid Monkey, a monkey who seems to be, I think it's Acid Chimp, who seems to be obsessed with buying vats of acid and throwing them at people. And that seems to be it. And for some reason, he hangs out with, what's the guy's name? Emperor. He hangs out with Emperor King for some reason. I don't know if he's his pet or what. But it's a lot of fun just reading this. It's fun to read the fake letters page that kind of spoofs old school Silver Age comics and the like. I'm just happy this comic exists, and I'll keep getting it as long as it does. These top four, starting with My Bad, were hard to distinguish in terms of my ranking. I had to just say, well, yeah, for some reason I enjoyed this one better than that one. At first I thought maybe I ought to put A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance at the top. The art continues to be really great. The plot has accelerated. There's still a lot they're not telling us, but just the feeling of events and the pushing forward of the character and some surprising sort of little twists here and there have there been more of them in this issue. It's still a very minimalistic ratio of art to text. My only complaint, and you can kind of see it here, is the coloring. The contrast, the sense of contrast between one thing and another in the color on some pages doesn't work as well as on others. But a really good read. Overall, I'm just really enjoying this because it's different than any other comic I'm reading, even though it's a crime comic. And then in at number 2, Usagi Yojimbo. I was almost going to put this quite a bit lower because for a Usagi book, this was a weaker entry, for me at least. And part of it was because I think it ties in to the history of this character, and I know I've read one of the reprints about him. What's his name? One of the reprints where Usagi encounters him, but I just didn't remember it very well. Jei is how it's spelled. And it just, I don't know, it didn't wrap up quite as satisfyingly as your average Usagi comic. In other words, it might have been a B+ comic instead of an A+ comic, or maybe it was an A- comic instead of an A+ comic. So it seems unfair to be too harsh on it. I do think it, unlike most of Usagi comics, it wasn't as quite new reader friendly, maybe because of the G character, and the sense that even though it's a two issue story, that there's more to the story, that we haven't really fully fleshed out the significance of it all yet, which is fine. But I'm used to Usagi, really being complete in one issue or 3 issues or however many. But I'm still excited to see what comes next. I feel like there's been a slight loosening in a good way in the art style. I think maybe it almost feels like maybe Stan Sakai was using a different pen or something. I'd be very curious to know what his art supplies and stuff are. I bet somewhere out there's an interview with him that explains all of that. I love the coloring on Usagi too, even though it's by someone just called Hi-Fi Design, which, yeah. So I was, in a way you might say everything I read this week went from a B- to a B+ or something along those lines. So nothing sucked, but there was nothing like, oh my God, comics are to die for. So I'm putting The Lion and the Eagle #1 in my #1 spot. It's a war comic written by Garth Ennis, art by P.J. Holden, color by Matt Milla. I don't really like this cover. I mean, it's so super realistic. I think it undercuts the style of the art on the inside. But although I know this cover artist, what's his name, is a very good artist, Tim Bradstreet. Uh, yeah, I don't know. It looks almost. It's so hyper realistic. You expect to be watching a movie about these guys. So a bunch of things that are cool about this. It's about a friendship during wartime. It's about World War II, but World War, I guess, really was a world war. I mean, there were battlefronts all over the place, and this is about fighting the Japanese in Burma with British-led troops of Indian soldiers from India. Although they seem to be Sikhs, I think. Am I right on that? And are Sikhs more common in India or in Pakistan? I suppose this might be before India and Pakistan separated anyway. I'm a bit ignorant on where the Sikhs live. And I think they're Sikhs from what we see here. So it's really interestingly told. The only there's slippery bits of wait a minute, which timeline are we in here now? Garth Ennis doesn't help us out that way because there's maybe 3 different times. One is just at the beginning where one of our heroes is having a conversation with a Chinese officer before preparing for some big mission. And then there's the flashback period where the characters first met and had to escape with whatever few survivors they could from a really terrible situation in battling the Japanese. And then there's the preparations for their return to that territory that they're going to fight over with the Japanese and their plan to go behind Japanese enemy lines. So it's got the tension of war. It captures a lot of things about war. It's very British. It's cool that it's about a part of World War II that I've never even heard about before. So I really liked it. So the downsides were the slipperiness of time, figuring out the time. The art is okay. I think it's ill-served by being blown up. It's art that would be better at a regular comic book size, ironically. Ironically, I wish this was shrunk down to the normal size. The other thing is I purchased this believing it was a one-shot because every other large album-sized book from Aftershock has been a one-shot. But now I guess I'm hooked. I've got to get it. But I think my recommendation would be wait for it in a trade because it's just not written in a serialized way. It doesn't feel like we're on a cliffhanger or anything on the last page. It just feels like a graphic novel that is going to be divided up into 3 issues or something like that. But I can't resist continuing to read it. It's a cool read. Why they chose to blow this one up to oversize, because normally these oversized ones feature some special kind of art. The coloring was just, I don't know, functional. But, so overall, yeah, right. It's a writing trumps art kind of situation. So there was a bunch of books that I didn't get around to reading. The main one that I need to catch up on is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. This came out this week, but I have all these other issues to read, and I know it's going to be a dense read, so I've been putting it off a bit. I've also got, I'm missing an issue of Canto. So Canto came out this past week, and I need to find that issue. Other comics I'm planning to read coming up soon. I want to reread Thor 170, which is the first Thor I ever read as a kid. Churning through my comics, I kind of came up with that. And I remember just falling in love. I mean, just the cover alone is incredible. Just the big, brash Kirby art, inked by Bill Everett, who I think might be in the top 3 Kirby inkers, along with Mike Royer and Joe Sinnott. I think I think Bill Everett really understood what Kirby was doing and didn't get in the way of it and enhanced it to a degree, but didn't try, like his ego is not covering up Kirby's pencils at all. It's his best take on making Kirby's pencils pop. And I think this is the first appearance of the Son of Satan, so I want to dive in and read that. Here's the Canto. So I need to find. Also got Canto this week, and another one that I'm behind on, so I need to catch up on is Oswald's Body, which I actually meant to drop from my pull list, but I didn't. I wonder how many more issues there are, so maybe I should stick with it at this point. I didn't hate it, but I meant to just kind of call it. I bought the first 2 issues of Tales of the Dead Astronaut. I decided to give those a try because I kind of think the art's cool and maybe the concept might be cool. I also, on my to-be-read pile, are these Justice League Gods and Monster books that came from Brian. I've been wanting to read these for years, really, and now I've got these copies from Brian, so I should read it. Also, maybe on the ambitious side, I got the Complete Mouse. I think I only ever read the first volume of Mouse back in the day, and I read most of it serialized in Raw magazine, which sadly I don't know where any. I long since shed those copies of Raw, and now they all cost like $150 a piece. But anyway, it's a bit intimidating. It's a very long graphic novel when you combine both volumes, and it's going to be a dense read. But I hope to get started on that. And then, under the influence of Ryan Carey, the proprietor of what's Ryan's website? Something Apocalypse. I'm sorry, Ryan. Oh man. Anyway, he has been ranting for quite a while about Reptile House Comics. So I just ordered a few from their website. I think this is a collection of all one guy's stuff, Nick Bunch. Probably this was recommended by Ryan. This week's Apocalypse? No. Comic Book Apocalypse. Damn it, Ryan, I'm sorry. I will put a link to Ryan's website down below. And I also support him on Patreon. He's one of my favorite writers about comics. So there's that. It looks intimidating. The art looks like it's going to be work to sort through, but it also looks appealing. And then I got an issue of their anthology comic, Reptile House. I just picked one, I guess. I like that cover. And so there's a bunch of different kind of art in here. I'm not sure if I'm going to like it all. I peeked in and there was a sequence where a woman has maggots coming out of her vagina. So I'm not sure what that's about. So we'll see. It's good to experiment, right? And then I guess another issue number 8, I ordered also. I didn't realize that was going to be a 3D issue. So I'll have to take a look at that. So that's what I'm up to right now. I'm actually going to, probably in a half hour, go to my comic book shop because it's already Wednesday, pick up the new comics, then do my regular thing, which might be the last time, of going out to Mocha Express and hanging out with John Stout and Travis T, a.k.a. Comics with Bueller, and that's always a really good time. But I don't know, Travis isn't leaving the state yet, but he's leaving the Portland area, I believe. So I don't know how much we'll see him once he heads down to his family lake. So I'm kind of feeling sad about that already. But it's good. I'm looking forward to his adventures. So I will be back soon talking more about comics. Bye-bye.
I'm all jacked up on Damien yet again.